Let me know when.
All right, it's recorded.
What's up, y'all? This is Brandon Simmons, and I'm here with Jeff Lacey Jr. for Boss Sports. We are about to break down this weekend's NFL playoff matchups for the blog Black Quarterback, the column Black Quarterback, rather. So this week, got a couple defensive matchups, got a couple offensive matchups. Starting off with a defensive matchup, it's kind of got a couple sloppy teams in it. Got Arizona going on the road to take on the Carolina Panthers. Now, both these teams, they've been having somewhat kind of rocky second halves. Arizona's been like kind of the lead team supposed to be a Super Bowl prediction and just kind of wave it off at the end. Carolina was in that sloppy NFC South, and they still picked it up towards the end to win the division. So who do you got between this matchup?
This matchup, with the Cardinals, I really want to go with the Cardinals. They have an exceptional defense, but their quarterback play, I just don't trust it. I mean, I trust Cam over Ryan Lindley, and both defenses are playing top notch right now, and I definitely would like Cam Newton to outplay Ryan Lindley in that matchup with Carolina and Arizona. So I'm gonna go with the Carolina Panthers in that one.
I actually have to agree with you on that. And I think really it will come down to what these defenses can do to the opposing quarterback. Now, Carolina's defense, they've been kind of off and on, throughout the season, but they picked it up the last couple games, and especially against holding Atlanta down to 3 points, which is pretty impressive because despite Atlanta's troubles, they still have an amazing offense. But I don't see this game being a big blowout, and somehow I think the Carolina Panthers will just squeak out of this one, low-scoring affair.
Definitely. I really think it'll be like a low-scoring, close game because both defense play so exceptionally well. Even though Arizona did show weaknesses against Seattle, but then again, that is Seattle. But I definitely think Carolina will outlast Seattle in that win.
Exactly. The next matchup after that will be the Baltimore Ravens going on the road to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, we just coming off the NFC South having one of their worst, weird seasons ever. The Steelers won the AFC North, probably the best division of football all season,
I would say.
And so with the Ravens and Steelers, once again, it'll be the NFL's bloodbath put back on display. So who do you got in this matchup?
In this matchup, I want to go. I really do. I want to go with Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh, even without Le'Veon Bell, has enough offense to outlast the Baltimore Ravens defense. Baltimore Ravens defense isn't no slouch though, but I think Le'Veon Bell can be. It looks like he's gonna try to give it a go, but he's not gonna be 100%. That is definitely gonna be a blow to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But even without Le'Veon Bell, I think Big Ben and those boys, Antonio Brown, will be able to put it together. And Pittsburgh's defenses came on as of late. This year they've been more of an offensive team, but as of late, their defense has been coming on pretty strong. I want to go with Pittsburgh in that matchup over Baltimore.
Yeah, once again, I have to agree with you on that one. I mean, Ravens, they've been good like most of the year, but I mean, these last two games again, like, it just seemed to slip off for them. And especially the game against Cleveland, like, it's one thing to play the way they did against the Texans on the road, but it's another thing to play against a Browns team that is just uninspired, played by all types of off-the-field distractions and everything. So I think the Steelers will actually win this one decisively. And also, they signed Ben Tate this week. So even if Le'Veon Bell does give it a go, they have a somewhat type of decent running back in Ben Tate. And I think that 1-2 punch.
I
Go
still
ahead.
want to say that they win decisively. I still think Baltimore, has too much pride and still is a good enough football team to give them a fight. But, Baltimore just hasn't looked that good to me going in there, like limping into the playoffs. Whereas Pittsburgh, even without Le'Veon Bell, I mean, it's still in pretty good stride headed into the playoffs. But I still think Pittsburgh's going to win without their best player, Le'Veon Bell.
Right. And even with Baltimore limping in, I think they regroup, but I mean, with Pittsburgh, like, they might I don't know, Big Ben might turn it on again. So we'll see. The next matchup will be the Bengals taking on the Indianapolis Colts. Now, this one might be a pretty big matchup of two somewhat disappointing teams, as the Bengals is one of those surprise undefeated teams that jumped out earlier in the year. And they pretty much held the AFC North division lead for most of the season until last week when they lost to Pittsburgh. As for the Colts, they've been kind of good here and there. They won the AFC South division, which I mean pretty much was a given considering the teams that are in there this year. But also, they've lost their running back Amar Bradshaw for the year, and they really haven't found a good running game. So, who do you think has it in this matchup?
This one's very interesting to me. The Bengals are the team. Both these teams are very consistent. I mean, both these teams are loaded with talent, especially on the Bengals side. They're loaded with talent, but can't seem to put it together every single week. Now, my thing is, the Bengals to me is the more talented team than the Colts. The Colts have a better quarterback than the Bengals, even though Andrew Luck, in my eyes, is still very inconsistent. And we all know Andy Dalton struggles. I mean, he's like 2-7 in primetime games. He's 0-4 in playoff games. And I think those struggles continue. We know Andrew Luck has struggles too in the playoffs. Last year when heading into the second game of the playoffs, he was like 2 touchdowns and 9 interceptions or something like that. But I think Luck is able to put it together one more week against the Bengals. Even though their defense played really good against Peyton Manning and the Broncos, I still think Andrew Luck has enough what it takes to knock out the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals offense, it's shake. AJ Green is kind of iffy. He's gimpy a little bit, and their offense, they don't show up in primetime. I mean, it's just that simple. And when big games, when it matters the most, last week against Pittsburgh, they don't show up. And so I think the Colts will have more than enough of what it takes to knock out the Bengals this week.
That one I'm going to have to detour away from that agreement, and I might have to go with the Bengals on this one, simply because of the fact of what you just said. Like Andy Dalton, he hasn't put up the greatest, record as far as like primetime games or put on the greatest performances as far as big games go. But at the same time, they're playing in the afternoon, and not only that, I think that they have the weapons that could take over the Indianapolis defense. Now, granted, the last time these two teams played, like, Indianapolis pretty much shut them all out, But, I mean, the Bengals have kind of picked it up since then. So I think AJ Green, he gets back to form. And if not, they still got other weapons such as Mohamed Sanu. Other than that, they got a great running back duo with Jeremy Hill and Giovanni Bernard. So I think that that offense is really going to test that Indianapolis defense. Now, last year, the Colts opened up their wildcard round at home, and they fell behind a lot to the Chiefs. And that's pretty much the difference between the Bengals and the Chiefs. Like, the Bengals is a much more solid team than the Chiefs was that year. And so I think that if the Colts fall behind early like they did last year, which I don't think will happen, but if they fall behind early like they did last year, it's probably going to be really hard for them to like keep pace and come back, because that running.
I agree with that completely. I just don't know how much I trust the Cincinnati Bengals in this situation. I mean, I think they're one of the most talented teams on both sides of the ball in the entire NFL. I mean, honestly, Cincinnati has enough talent on their team to win a Super Bowl. With those backs, those receivers, if Andy Dalton can just put it all together in 1 week, and that defense is not that bad with 4 first-round picks in the secondary, a good linebacking core, a really good front seven. I mean, they have great talent over there in Cincinnati. It's can they put it together, when it matters the most. And the last 4 years they haven't been able to. Now we'll see what they'll be able to do against Indianapolis and the Colts. And the Colts Andrew Luck has something in his blood that just boils when it's when it's go time. And he plays really good in games like these. We'll see what he does.
Exactly. And the final matchup of the weekend, probably the game of the week, if anything, the Detroit Lions and the Dallas Cowboys, and Cowboys fans have had their prayers answered. Finally, the Cowboys made it back to the playoffs. They're actually hosting this game as they won the NFC East Division. And I don't know. This one, I was examining it, and this looks to be pretty explosive as far as like two quarterbacks that can throw the rock. I like both. Actually love both offenses, the way they're set up, and they can match up, pretty well. So who do you got in this matchup?
In this game, honestly, as painful as it is for me to say this, I think Dallas is the better team. I really do think the Cowboys are better than the Lions. I think their offense is better. Their offensive line is better, and that therefore they can catapult them into being a better team. To me, it's whose defense is going to show up in this game. Whose defense is going to make stops, key and timely stops. Like, it's not like I don't think either team is going to be able to stop the other offense. I think it's whoever comes up with timely stops. Whether if you give up a couple first downs and force a field goal, or if you get in the red zone, force a field goal, or force a timely punt or a turnover, something like that. In this game, I think Dallas is going to win. Hurts for me to say this because I do not care for the Cowboys that much. But I think Dallas is going to win because just too much DeMarco Murray. Dez Bryant is playing like he's the best receiver in the entire NFL. Romo is not turning the ball over. Even though he loves these moments to mess up, I think just too much Dez, too much DeMarco, too much Tyron Smith in that offensive line. I'm going with Dallas over Detroit.
I agree with you, too. I do not care for the Cowboys. However, the reason I'm going to pick the Lions is not because of my hate for the Cowboys, but because, like I said, I think they have just the same amount of weapons as the Cowboys. I really do believe in Matthew Stafford. I actually thought he would win. I thought he was a good MVP worthy candidate earlier in the season. Calvin Johnson against that defense, I think it could really go down, and I think he can just beast on them this weekend. The running backs, they have like a three-headed attack now. Theo Riddick, Jordan Bell, Reggie Bush is finally healthy, so I think he can provide like a little, pass catching option out of the backfield. Riddick and Bell, that could run in between the tackles, run outside the tackles, so that'll be really tough for that defense to just handle. I do agree with what you said, though. Like, it will come down to who can make a couple more stops. I think when it comes down to it, Dominic Sue will actually be playing in this game. So with him and Nick Fairley on that defensive line, I think they can probably slow down DeMarco Murray. I'm not going to say they're just going to shut him down and hold him to under 30 yards. That's not going to happen. He might even get 100, but I really think, like, with that Detroit D-line, like, they're going to help that Detroit defense make quite a few stops, and that'll be the complete difference in this game. So, yeah, I'm going with Detroit on this one.
But Romo is painful. Like I said, once again, as painful as it is for me to say this, Romo is playing lights out right now. And I think Romo will outdo Stafford. I mean, once again, it comes down to the quarterbacks, because I think Detroit's front seven is good enough to, like you said, slow down DeMarco Murray so they won't be able to have as great a time of possession as they had over other teams. But Romo is right now, to me, is better than Matt Stafford. And I think he'll outdo Stafford. Stafford last week against Green Bay looked like he took some steps backwards. And that's not good headed into the playoffs. Hopefully Jim Caldwell can get his head right and get Detroit back on the right page. But right now, Romo to Dez is the deadliest combination in the NFL right now. Romo to Dez, especially in the red zone area. In the red zone area, there's been nobody else getting better than Dez. He leads the NFL in reception touchdowns. Nobody else better than Dez getting in the end zone this year. That red zone area, Romo to Dez, I think is just too much for Detroit.
All right. Well, that's all the time we got for this week. We will be back next week, probably going over these picks, see who's right and wrong, and go ahead and throw on some more knowledge for next week's divisional round. So until then, I'm Brandon Simmons. This is Jeff Schleitzy for Boss Sports, saying holla.